Hey, fellow students. Thanks for watching this, and I'm really looking forward to your feedback. Please give me thorough feedback that's useful and helpful. With that said, so I was interviewing Amber, who is pretending to be a client that has motivation issues and anxiety. So she had trouble getting to work, and then trouble doing, you'll see, housework here. I was using CBT as my model, so I started the session off with kind of some report building and then homework assignment, and then set an agenda with her. As far as setting the agenda goes, I feel like that went pretty well, though I went into it a little more with here's what we talked about last week. What do you want to talk about this week? And I think I should have had some more ideas in my head ahead of time. Um, so there was that. But otherwise, I think the first part of the session went well. This is kind of getting near the end, and we're gonna, kind of evaluate and start pushing on some of those cognitive thoughts to see if they're valid.
Couldn't bring myself to do it knowing it was just gonna have to be done again. You know what I mean? And like it just feels like the mountain of chores never ends. It's like never ending. And so I kind of just had this feeling of like, well, why even bother? Why bo-
Hmm.
why bother? And yeah, I also wasn't gonna get a lot of help on it. And so I was like, screw it. I'll just watch TV all day,
Hmm.
all day. So because the TV was just, I mean, it was just easier. It was a lot
Hmm.
easier than
Yeah.
working all day to make sure the house was clean and the laundry was
Hmm.
done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I gotta tell you that thought that you had is not inaccurate. Like,
Yeah.
it's never gonna end, right? We're always gonna have chores. So that's that's a legit part of what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Um, do you think the conclusion off of that is so it's not worth doing now
Mhm.
is valid?
Um, Not entirely. No, because it was kind of annoying to wake up Monday morning and not have any clean clothes somewhere. So that was a bummer. It would have been nice if I'd done laundry over the weekend, for the sake of having clean clothes. Or like the clothes I wanted to wear anyway. So yeah, I guess the thought of is it worth doing, even though it will need to get done in the future. Yeah, it probably would have been worth doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. At least at least sometime. I mean, maybe it wasn't on Friday night, but yeah. Do you is there, kind of in that conversation inside of your head, is there a part of it that you something you tell yourself about you or something you tell yourself about the situation that kind of helps you get stuck and not work on things?
Mm, um, the only thing that comes to mind is that if it can't be done perfectly, it's not worth doing. Also, like if I can't spot clean every square inch of the floor, like why even get the mop out, or like the laundry, if I can't get the stains out from the spaghetti from last Tuesday, like why bother? So yeah, I do have thoughts like that, maybe where like I can't do it perfectly, so or it's not going to be, I'm not going to, or I don't have the energy to do it perfectly. So again,
Right.
like why bother? I
And I
suppose
would I would imagine you're never going to be able to do it perfectly.
I can try.
Yeah, but I mean that's hard. So there again on that is where does that come from? Like why is it there this sense if you can't do it perfectly, then it's not worth doing at all?
Mm,
All right, so kind of working through some of my thoughts on feeling that. One, I could definitely see my eyes moving around as I was trying to, read notes or look at the screen, and that was distracting to me. I think there's less of that for sure in a actual room, but That's something to be mindful of. And also, I felt like my desire to be, show that I was paying attention seemed kind of intense. And so I should probably tone that down a bit. Body language aside, I think I did a pretty good job of, a little bit of gestures and seeming engaged. And I do feel like I did a pretty good job of pivoting it to, so what are the beliefs or the things that you're thinking in the background behind the behavior? I did miss, and I wish I'd picked up on this, where she said, I just decided to watch TV. And I think it would have been good if I had said, so how did that decision come about? And try and kind of clarify that piece. Um, I'm a little torn on the way that I said, well, yeah, your conclusion's right. Um, what I was trying to do, and I do it again, toward the end of the clip, and what I was trying to do is separate the thought from the behavior at the end, right? I wanted to say, yes, you had the right thought or you had a correct conclusion, but then that doesn't necessarily mean that you need to do the behavior. And I don't know that that communicated well. That'll actually be something I'll ask you about at the end because I think I would be curious how that struck you. Um, then as far as the modality goes, basically what I was trying to do is get her to reevaluate her internal assumptions, and like, get her to decide whether or not the behavioral outcome is actually a logical or a valid reason, or behavior based on the idea that this is just going to be too much work. Um, but I do think the way I phrase that by saying, "Do you think the conclusion you're making is valid?" is pretty leading, and it's not really a question. I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's also a close-ended question. I mean, she could just say yes or no. So I think I need better, transition questions out of somebody making a point like that. I was trying to figure out how do I spin this to bring this back into conversations about what you're deciding, but it just kind of ended awkwardly, I felt. And then I also just kind of agreed with her, which could have been a little placating. I mean, watching it critically, I was like, it could have come across as me saying, "Yeah, yeah, I was right about that. That wasn't a good decision, wasn't I?" And that would be kind of belittling and not helpful. So, um, anyway, I do think, then switching back into the behavioral or the cognitive piece, where I was saying, is there something that gets your mind stuck? On there was a way to get her back into that process. Um, but I also think that particular phrasing was a little ambiguous, and I think it made her stop and try and figure out what I was asking and to pause through. Um, which there's positives and minuses to that. I wish I had been a little more clear. I think I need to work on that. But I also think leaving a little bit of ambiguity and wiggle room allows her to address the question the way she wants to. So, I was a little torn on that. But I do think I need to work on a little bit better phrasing for that. And then, when we kind of got down near the end of the clip, when I was asking about what was the thought process that led to the avoidance tactic, and she was talking about not being able to do things perfectly. And so I just went, yeah, you're right. Like, you're not going to be able to do things perfectly. And there again, that was an acknowledgement that the conclusion or the thought was correct, but maybe the behavior wasn't the best way to apply it. But I'm not sure that that came across. Um, there was a little bit of humor to it, the way I said it. But I'd be curious what you guys think about that. And then, I did want to acknowledge, that what she was thinking and feeling was valid and worth, wrestling with or thinking about. Um, and then, at the toward the end of the clip, I think, pivoting that to, well, where does that come from? Or where does that sense of I need to do this perfectly come from? Um, I was hoping to kind of push into there again some of those internal beliefs or things that she thought about herself. Did she feel like if I don't do it right, I'm failing or whatever? I wasn't real specific and clear on that. I probably should have been either a little more directive or played that differently altogether. But that was the intention behind what I was doing, which I think lines up, at least in theory, with CBT techniques. So I felt like that was going pretty good. As far as questions go, the questions I would love feedback on is that just blatant acknowledgement or announcing that they're right in what they think. Is that helpful? Do you think that that comes across as sort of paternalizing or minimizing, or do you think that's actually a good step to say to somebody like, yeah, that is a valid option. That is a conclusion that you could come to that makes sense. Um, and then rather than ask, do you think that's valid? I need to come up with a better way of phrasing that so that people feel like I'm asking, is the conclusion that you're drawing or the behavior that you're choosing, is that really the where you want to go with the conclusion you made before? Um, and I haven't really fleshed out that, so it just feels kind of awkward. So if you have any suggestions on that, that would be great. Um, and yeah, anything else in there that you saw me do it and you went, ooh, that was kind of awkward, or you should work on that. I would really appreciate the feedback. So thanks so much for listening and helping me out.